Pasta Patate Fagioli, or pasta, potato, and beans. This is peak comfort food. And as the summer sadly ends, this is the comfort food that's going to feed you all fall long. And I'm sad summer's ending, so if you want to cheer me up, hit that subscribe button for me and let's get these beans soaking. These are dried borlotti beans. In America, you might see them called cranberry beans. They got this beautiful sort of beige color with these red streaks sort of running through them. For this recipe, we're going to need to weigh out about 200 grams of them. This should be enough for about 3 people. You can always add a little bit more if you want, but 200 grams worked for me. And then to that bowl, I'm just going to cover it and add as much water as I can to the bowl and allow them to sit and soak for about 8 to 10 hours. So I'm just gonna do this before I go to sleep. Soaking them obviously softens them up and it makes the cooking process much shorter tomorrow. Now, as you can see, just after about a 10-hour soak, the bean literally quadruples in size. Now here's the thing. Could you get a canned version of this and use this in the recipe? Absolutely. I do it all the time. But if you can't tell, the texture of this is just going to be infinitely superior. Starting from dry and then cooking, you're gonna be able to add the flavor you want and get the texture you want. So when you can, try to test out using dried beans. If you don't, it's so worth it. And it will develop a love of beans for you that you never knew existed. So now what we're gonna do is we're gonna take that and we're just gonna add that to a pan. I'm gonna be using this 3-quart saucier. And this is the only pan I need to use today. It's kind of like a 1-pot thing. Now those beans are gonna continue to sort of soak up that water. So I'm gonna need to add more to compensate. It's gonna evaporate, it's gonna get absorbed. So I may need to add a little bit more water as these cook. Now I'm gonna get this on the stove, get it up to a boil while I prep some aromatics that I'm gonna throw in it. I have 1 carrot. I'm gonna take this guy, this little half, throw this in there. We're gonna need this later, so I'm just gonna set these off to the side. I'm gonna take a celery stalk, cut it in half. I've got this nice long red onion. It's a tropia onion. Just gonna cut that in half. Then I got a clove of garlic. Just gonna cut that in half, remove the paper, keep them in rather large pieces. Then I got some guanciale here. You never wanna eat that sort of exterior of the guanciale, so I just trim it off. And I'm gonna cut that piece in half, and I'm just gonna make little thin dices. And then I'm gonna use these to flavor the beans. And then get those chopped pieces into a bowl. Now back over to the stove, we have this foamy scum rising to the top of our beans. So just like any kind of stock, we're going to skim that off, try and keep that broth nice and clean. Then we can go in with the vegetables. The carrots, the celery, the onions and garlic, the rosemary and sage, a bay leaf, and then we're gonna season it generously with salt, and then we're gonna add in those cubes of guanciale. Then we're gonna knock this down to a simmer and cook these for about an hour. During that cooking process, some of that water might evaporate, so you just want to pour a little bit more in and let it cook until they're nice and al dente. You don't want them to turn into mush. Once they're al dente, you want to remove the carrots, the celery, the onion, all those vegetables and herbs, so that you're just left with the beans and the broth that they cooked in, and then you just want to strain that water out, transfer those beans to a bowl until we're ready to use them. Now, just like pasta, when you go and taste one of these, you should have added enough salt to the water for these to taste not salty, but seasoned, flavorful. And if you can just appreciate a bean properly seasoned on its own, it does help you understand and gain a new love and appreciation for beans. So these are good to go. We're gonna set these off to the side. Now I've just basically got some carrots, some onions, some celery. I'm just gonna go through and cut these up nice and fine. And by fine, I just want all of these vegetables to be a nice small, equally sized dice. For the carrot, you just cut them into planks, standing them up, then cut those planks into strips, and then those strips into dices. Do the same to an onion. And for the garlic, we can just cut it into slices. Now we've got our potatoes. We just want to peel them, give them a quick rinse, and then just like the carrots, we're gonna cut them into planks while standing them up, then into strips, and then turning those strips into a small dice. And then get those diced potatoes into some water so they don't oxidize. So traditionally in like a pasta patate, you use a provola or a provolone. So I'm gonna add that here. It's really nice at the end. Just gonna cut that up into a little bit of a dice. Not too much, just to get a nice cheesiness going. And we can set this off to the side. This is gonna go on at the end. Now the beauty of a recipe like this is it's sort of a one-pot meal. And the pan that I'm gonna be using today is my favorite pan of all time, the 3-quart saucier from our sponsor today, Made In. Made In designs professional quality products for the home cook, and they partner with multi-generational factories and artisans to offer a real comprehensive collection of pots, pans, serveware, and everything else you might need to cook and serve food in a home kitchen. And the quality of everything they make is on point. Made In stainless clad pans are crafted in Italy and made of a premium 5-ply stainless steel material, which allows for superior heat retention, even heating, and ease of heat control. And the handles are designed to stay cool on the stovetop and are ergonomical to help balance the pan. And I've said it many times, for me, the most important thing when buying a pan is the handle. It's gotta feel comfortable in your hand, it can't be too sharp, and it can't be too round. And Made In's is perfect. And the curvature of the walls are great for flipping pastas and making sauces, especially a recipe like we're making today. So if you're looking to gear up on my favorite pan ever or any of Made In's amazing products, go down in the description and click the link. There's gonna be a discount there waiting for you. Now we can make our pasta, potato, and beans. So we're gonna take our saucier and get it onto medium-high heat. We're gonna coat the pan with a little bit of olive oil just to help out the guanciale a bit, and then we're gonna add in the guanciale. And we're gonna cook that until the meat is browned and the fat is rendered. And once some fat gets rendered, I like to pool everything in the corner to help all those pieces render evenly. Once the guanciale is browned, then we can go in with the carrot, celery, and onion and garlic. We just want to cook those until they're softened and to begin to pick up the brown bits off the bottom of the pan. And once the vegetables are softened and aromatic, then we can add in just a tiny bit of tomato paste and get that tossed into the mix. And once you've cooked that tomato paste off for a minute or two, then we can go in with our potatoes. So now you can use the water the potatoes are soaking in, but I'm gonna use some stock later. Get those mixed in and then season the potatoes with salt. And then we can go in with a box of chicken broth. Homemade's great, but I've run out of stock for the year. Bring it up to a boil, then drop it down to a simmer, and then you want to cook the potatoes until they're just al dente. Once they're al dente, then we can go ahead and add in the beans. We're gonna stir them up and let them simmer for about 5 minutes just to get married with all those flavors. And then after a few minutes of simmering, I'm gonna pull out 2.5 ladles of the potatoes and beans and add them to a blender. And we're just gonna process that until it's a smooth puree. And then we're gonna take that and add that back into the mixture to give it all some nice creamy body and to create the right texture when this is all said and done. This is a classic technique for sort of thickening Italian sauces. We want to taste it for flavor and then adjust the seasoning in any way necessary. And then we can go in with our pasta. And today I'm going to be using this tubetti, about 1/4 or 1/3 of the box. Then I'm just going to add a little bit of water to thin it out slightly to compensate for the pasta cooking. And then I'm going to lower the heat down to a gentle simmer. And this pasta says it's going to take 10 minutes to become al dente, but with the sauce so thick and cooking it slower, it's probably going to take more like 15 to 20 minutes. And I'm going to stir constantly because the sauce and the pasta can stick to the bottom quite easily here. I'm gonna hit it with a little bit of lemon juice to brighten it all up. Once I've tasted the pasta and it's perfectly cooked, I'm gonna go in with some fresh parsley, get that mixed in, and then right in with those cubes of provolone. And we wanna stir the mixture to get the provolone nicely melted, which we will do off the heat, by the way. And once it's melted, we're gonna go in with a handful or 2 of Parmigiano Reggiano. Once that's worked in, your dish is ready to be plated. You're just gonna take a few ladles, pour that into a bowl, a little bit of lemon juice, a little bit of olive oil, a little bit of cheese, and a final sprinkle of parsley. Now, believe it or not, I like to eat this with bread. Another carb? Why not? What you should have is a thick, creamy, classic Italian dish. It's such a beautiful peasant dish. Sometimes I want to eat like a peasant. Sometimes eating like a peasant is the best way to eat. And though it doesn't look like much, it really just does something to the soul. And I'm gonna be eating it all fall long. Do you wanna join me? The recipe is gonna be down in the description. That's all that I have today. I'll see you next time. Until then, take care of yourself and go feed yourself.